And I got a job at Microsoft, and the same thing happened again. You have to be the bad guy internally, but like it just felt like I was in a culture of people on the same wavelength as I was. They almost like incentivize people at Amazon to leave. Understand you can't scale without, you can't grow with their people's roles. A lot of people become billionaires that way.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Hey, Alex, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to jump into all things customer success and success on your terms and all the good things that we talk about here. And I'm actually just going to ask you to go ahead and, in your own words, give a quick introduction of who you are and what you're building.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. First off, I'm Alex. I am originally from North Idaho. Very proud of that. I spent the last, I don't know, 13 years in corporate in Seattle. So I worked my way up through Microsoft and Amazon, and kind of got addicted to the idea of working remotely. And COVID happened. This is not a unique story, but COVID happened, and it kind of allowed me to do that. And I looked back at what was my experience the last 10 13 years, and it was all around one topic of customer success. So I started off by creating, I left Amazon and created a company called Huckleberry Consulting that is around consulting for existing customer success teams. And then I spurred another company, which is a recruiting and outsourcing company, just around customer success managers. And as of today, I live in Mexico, Playa del Carmen, roughly half a year, and then the other half I'm in Asia. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell nowadays.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think you are also, a consummate builder, which is why I was so excited to have you come on here. We are also, not neighbors, but we both actually live in Playa del Carmen and have both spent time in Asia. So there's so much to dig into, but I want to start before I get too excited and ask us to just kind of like go back a bit and just understand
Yeah.
a little bit more about your journey in terms of, what shaped your leadership and a little bit more, like you said, you kept seeing things around, customer success, like why this business? Why now? I want to like really like take it back because I'd like to really highlight there's so many different paths to leadership and success and different definitions of it. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have any intention in getting into the customer success industry. Um, it's kind of ironic. I went to school for advertising. I loved it. I thought I was going to be in advertising my entire professional career. And it turns out it was just through college. So I got a job right out of college selling advertising. It turned out to actually be more of like customer relationship building, which today is, if I were to go back and relabel that job, it would be customer success. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like a sales job at all. And, I'm like, I want to get out of this. I want to go do some actual advertising, right? And I got a job at Microsoft. I was in Seattle, by the way, with this job. And I got a job at Microsoft, and the same thing happened again. I was working with clients mainly. I was trying to like fix their issues, fix things internally to make them more satisfied. measured off of not their performance with advertising, but how satisfied they were. And I just got
Mm.
bamboozled into doing customer success again. I don't know how it happened. It's like, okay, this next one, I'm going to absolutely do advertising. So I got reached out to from a recruiter at Amazon for an Amazon advertising job. Like, this is it, right? And did the interview, got the job. They said, call your mom, congratulations, you got it. And I never got my email with like the onboarding information. And I'm reaching out to them like crazy, and they're like, "We filled the position internally. We know that we already told you you got the job. However, we really want you to come on. So we have this position as a customer success manager." And I was there for 5 years being a customer success manager, managing their teams, and eventually building out their customer success teams. So I really wanted to do advertising, and I just got forced in customer success by the universe, and I don't know, I'm just like I've been submitted into accepting it, and I really like it. My personality like totally fits it. I love it. I really do like it. It's at the end of the day, I'm, an advocate for the customer, right? So I can sleep well at night knowing that, right? I'm actually making money for the companies. I'm helping them improve their products. There's not really like a bad side of my job. I guess like the only bad side would be, is when you have to go tell an internal team like, hey, you guys are setting like the wrong expectations or you're building the wrong things. Like you have to be the bad guy internally, but it's all for the good purpose. Um, so yeah, it fits my personality really well. Universe knew that that was my path. It seems like, but uh, yeah, that's my story. It's kind of ironic. It's really unique that I ended up getting forced into times, but I hope that gives a little color.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you just at some point you have to accept your destiny.
Yeah, you do. That last time was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Yeah,
I can only imagine. You're just like, you gotta be kidding me.
yeah. It was definitely, and you got to take it. It's a great job. It was
Incredible
working at
company.
it. Yeah, incredible company. The scale of the things that you impacted. My or Amazon are really big. It's like the country club of tech companies. Like everything works. It's been around forever.
Mm.
Life moves a little bit slower, but in the right pace. People are smart. But I was working on Bing ads, and we were. Bing was a great site. It's I think now just Microsoft Search or whatever. But we just copied everything Google did. Oh, Google made an update, so in a year we'll make that same update. Like there's no innovation. And yeah, so it just didn't feel like I was like moving the needle there. So Amazon was totally different. Every day really feels like day one. That not all the tools work. You're constantly building new things. So yeah, it was really exciting to go over there, but probably took a few years off of my life with the stress levels, I'd imagine.
I mean, life is all about trade-offs. It's like an
Yeah,
investment.
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
I really love what you shared there because I think, it's you applied for a role and then you got offered a different role, which I've
yeah,
actually been in that position. And that's a really interesting inflection point, I think, in a pivot in our lives is when, changing jobs. I'm gonna like harken back to my psychology days, like losing your job or changing a job is like a top, I'm gonna say five, don't quote me on that, like life event, right? So job is a really big part of our identity. It's also what we spend majority of our waking hours doing. And so I'm really interesting the way you described it of like, Amazon is a great company. I have a number of friends who've worked there at some point and it's a specific culture, but I
yeah,
love what you said about, the innovation, moving the needle. I think really understanding like what drives you allows you to align to the environment you want to work in and where you're going to be the best. And it sounds like you were able to kind of step back from probably a bit of disappointment and this idea of like, this is what I want to do and realize like, well, this is actually the environment I want to be in.
yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, I wanted to be around people who let me go back to a different way to phrase this. Like Amazon puts out everyone that goes works at Amazon, a lot of them become company owners, founders. They build something. They're very focused on, like hiring builders. And it's so ironic who they hire because you can have someone that looks super qualified and then someone who just doesn't look qualified, maybe they're just like really qualified, you have it's a flip of the coin who's going to get that job because their interview style is so behavioral focused. They're really looking for people who exemplify a high level of ownership. So when I got onto Amazon, I mean, everyone at Microsoft is really great to know, but like it just felt like I was in a culture of people on the same wavelength as I was, like just really smart in different ways, right? And people who were hungry and wanted to work really hard, right?
Yeah, that's really relatable. I think when I graduated and went into strategy consulting, which has like a terrible rap for a good reason, but it was one of the first times I felt like I was like in the right place. Like I
Nice.
felt like I was surrounded by people who really were driven in a similar way, where there was a value alignment. We had extremely strong culture, and I think in consulting, you're constantly going out to clients. So you actually
Yeah.
need even a stronger culture because your team are often spending more time outside of the business than in it.
Yep.
But I remember it absolutely, I mean, drove me to burnout probably, but it
Yeah.
drove me to a level of performance and it also, but without some of the frustration and resentment and that I had had in other environments where it was less common. Like not everyone what didn't feel like everyone was on the same like energy, like
Yeah. No, I get it.
and it really allowed me to sustain that performance in a different way. And it sounds like Amazon had some of that. Amazon, Google, like they are known for that. And while it might seem counterintuitive to hire people who are going to kind of go build their own company eventually, I think that's also the reality of innovation is like it's fast. It needs to move quickly and it often needs fresh blood.
Absolutely. Yeah. They almost like incentivize people at Amazon to leave.
Mhm.
Um, they have like these really strong signing bonuses, right? And then you could be there, for 5 years and you're making less than when you started, which is like a really unique thing. And they call it the boomerang strategy. So the people who like really want to work at Amazon and stay there, they have to leave at a certain point for a few years and then come back. Now, not everyone has to do that, but just like to justify the pay. So they'll leave and they'll come back and actually get like, a higher salary, right? But if they stay, they might make less. But like the promotion path there is you just really got to be on top of it. And honestly, it's one of the reasons it was time for me to leave is once you start getting into that kind of like it's either time to leave or you really got to keep climbing the ladder. And like a few times there, leveled up a few times, but it was either I have to do the boomerang thing or get into the really is what it was. Like a little bit of internal political stuff to like climb the ladder for longevity there. Um, and then more, to be even more honest, it was the remote work, right? They were like threatening to bring everyone back to the office. They'd done several different, you have to come home or come back to Seattle right away. Work starts, next week type emails. And like they never came to fruition. I just got so tired of it.
Mhm.
And it was just like a push for me to do what I, at the end of the day, wanted to do, which was start my own company. The timing wasn't exactly ideal since I was getting married like a month later. So, yeah, if anyone's paid for a wedding, uh, yeah, don't leave your job right before.
Or in your case, 3 weddings over the course of a
Yeah,
year and
I
a half.
knew you were gonna say for anyone listening. I've been married to my wife 3 times in the course of 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same wife, just to be clear.
Exactly. No divorces, just 3 weddings. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love what you said because I actually have seen a version of that. I'm not sure if in consulting it's a strategy, if I'm honest, but people, will go out and then come back in. And I think part of that is a bit of the salary game, right? Like signing bonuses tend to be good. You tend to get a lot of companies make this mistake if it's not a strategic decision, it's often a mistake of like recruiting hard and really paying people to bring them in and then not keeping up like the people that
Yeah.
you want to retain. But from the strategic side, to your point of Amazon and what I've seen in consulting is sometimes it's actually really helpful for people to go out, gain some experience in industry, in client, in other things, and then they come back with more insights, more network, different things. And that can actually be kind of good to see someone coming in and out. And then the other thing, obviously, and this would apply to Amazon and consulting, is if someone is really great and they're ready to move on, great relationship with them is great because they're going to go out and potentially be a client, right? Like used to look at people who were leaving in more senior roles as like they're going to go be an executive level person that is an economic buyer in our
Yep.
business. And I think
Yeah.
that really speaks to your culture doesn't just define how people work internally, it defines how people experience you externally, and it often defines how people will talk about you once they've moved on. And I think to your point, I'd love to dig into this. You knew it was time to move on for a variety of reasons. And in a large part, you had a dream and you had a lifestyle you wanted. And staying in your current role just wasn't aligning to either of those anymore. Is that right?
That's correct. Like I've I came to Mexico for a 2 month vacation. It's been 4 years. I fell in love with it right away, right? And I came down here to have a little fun and to be honest, like, potentially meet some girls. And I was, out of a 4 year relationship. So I was just trying to come down here and have fun. I met my wife on my second day. I fell head over heels for her, I had always had on a bucket list to live in another country for a year. So, I really wanted an opportunity to check that off. And, I think once I got to like month 4 here, it was really clear that my priorities have changed. Like, it's more important for me to outside of the US and to this girl, that had just entered my life. Um, and really, keeping on the path, corporate or, living in Seattle or just in the US in general, like I had other things that I needed to do. And, my experience, even working remotely for a corporate job, it didn't give the flexibility in order to really enjoy my life, right?
Yeah.
And that's not harping on anyone that's working like a 9 to 5 job. I promise you, I'm not. I have a ton of support for that. I just, where I was at in my life, I needed something with more flexibility where I could work 16-hour days, just it's going to look different, right?
Yeah.
I can, meet all sorts of different people. I can work in Bangkok, right? Different things. So for me, my priorities change, and a lot of that had to do because I fell in love with the country and I fell in love with the girl, right? So
I love that. So I like to talk about wealthy leadership, right? That's what you're talking about, in my opinion,
yeah,
and success on your terms, because I think we can all agree that there are some societally agreed like definitions of success, but I don't think we ever really understand what's under them when we're younger. Like we're just like, oh, like if you do these things or you have these things, then, most people will think that you have one.
yeah, exactly.
Like, and so I really, really would love to hear more about what, it's not that you're not willing, like you said, to put in the work, to have the meetings, to do the things, but you're maybe not willing to do it on someone else's terms.
Yeah.
So what does wealthy leadership mean to you? And if want to substitute success on your terms?
Yeah. I think like wealthy leadership in terms of like what do I think like a good leader is
Like
represents
I have
or
like wealthy leadership, usually how I like to talk about it is, it's growing a sustainable business profitably so that you
mm,
have the financial stability that you're looking for without sacrificing your health, physical and
yeah,
mental, your family, your community, or whatever it is that makes you the best version of you. And I think
yeah,
we a lot of us, particularly if you've worked in corporate or startup at a higher level, we have experienced burnout in some way, or we have
yeah,
experienced sacrificing ourselves on the altar of scale, success. A lot of us are a little bit hypocritical. We're trying to lead a team and build this culture, but we're not never unplugging or,
yeah,
you know, all these things. And so for me, when I think about wealthy leadership, I think about, it's building a business that doesn't just run on your constant effort
mm,
and commitment and
yeah,
having whatever the life you you deserve is, right? And so I guess it's really like for me, like what does success mean to you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I see where you're going with it. So, for me, I think it's changed a lot. Like I've had different periods in my life where I've had, you know, okay, success means that I have a season pass at a certain snowboarding resort or a ski resort, right? And I just got to wash enough dishes to get that, right? Then there was a point where like I think most recently my idea of like success was I can live comfortably from anywhere. I still work a bunch of hours because I enjoy it. I'm working on something I enjoy. I'm actually building something. And now I'm getting selfish. My definition of success is I want to live in multiple countries. I want to be able to support my family in the Philippines. I want to be able to build my family here in Mexico, and I want to be able to visit my family in the U.S. The primary breadwinner, making everyone comfortable. And I want to be a great dad. Like I really want to have a kid, and I really want to be able to financially support everything. But make sure that, and to be honest, I came from a poor background, so I'm not trying to spoil this kid. That's not my goal. It's like I just want to make sure that everyone in my life, my nuclear family, is completely, supported in case something happens, like a medical illness or something.
Mm,
So I my success is I want to be everyone's rock.
mm,
I want to have all the weight on my shoulders. I want to make sure everyone's good. And then in terms of like how I want, it's so different from what I want my employees, right? Like I want them to have the experience that I had before I got to this level. Depending on where they're at in their life. If they have kids, I want them to feel like they're the rock, right? And but if they don't, I want them to go, see Peru. I want them to go to Antarctica. And I want them to tell me about it, share it with the team, and to us to build really cool things and then to talk about what they want, in life career wise. And if it's not with us, like we as a team help them get there. Like
mm.
I feel like I kind of want the whole pie right
Yeah.
now,
I mean, that doesn't sound very selfish. It feels like you're trying to give like so many people in your atmosphere the best experience and support and, place for each of them to grow. Like that sounds pretty epic.
Yeah, I think so, I say the word selfish because it just seems like I do want it all, right? Like, because I want to live in different countries, I want to have family in different places, and I want to take care of them all. For me, it just kind of feels like there's got to be some give, right, to take, but maybe that's just like the upbringing. There's like some mental hurdles I'm still trying to
Sure.
overcome. Coming as like an employee, also coming from a poor background. Like there's a lot of mental obstacles in my way, not necessarily physical, but and it's crazy how they just like kind of reveal themselves every week, right? There's a
I
new
can
one.
relate so
Yeah.
much. I think that it's like we almost have to have this like audacious touchstone because otherwise, like all the beliefs and restraints that we grew up with, like they are lingering, right?
Yeah.
And so that a friend of mine just got, I think she got tattooed like why the hell not or something.
That's funny.
And
Not
she's
porque
like
no.
us. She's a business owner. She's, built seven-figure business. She comes from extreme, poverty. But like, yeah, why the hell not? And yeah, I can relate. The number of times I've had to sit down and realize that I'm like have a belief, that, that
Yeah.
I think it has to be this or this, and then I have to make this choice between these things, and I'm like, I really want this, but like, but also this, and like, and then when you get past that, you're like, so obviously can do both of those things.
Yeah. And I think that's a nice thing about living abroad. Like, you and I are both living abroad. We're in a culture where there's so many people that are living like that, where they do feel like they can have, I don't know, both sides of the pie or whatever you say. And I think the more you travel, the more you're around people like that, the more influences you and allows you to believe like you can do it. It's just like that person who ran like the 5 minute mile, right? Like no one thought they could do it until they saw someone, and then all of a sudden people started running 5 minute miles, right?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's like some in a really lame, I guess, like metaphor. Like we forget that Sometimes we forget that the 5 minute mile happened, right? And that being, that you can have everything, right? So like the more you can have people that influence you like that, kind of brings the light in your own head that like you can do it too.
What do you think is something that's helped you, beyond just being around community here? Obviously, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of like surround yourself with people who are doing or have done what you want. And, just directional, evolutionary science tells us that. But I'm really curious with your definition of success now, what are either trade-offs that you're no longer willing to make or like a really big shift in belief for you that's helped you to
Mm.
get to where you are and kind of put you on the track to where you want to go?
Yeah, I think I want to stay in one location more than I used to, right? Like I want to be very intentional. I move what I'm doing. Whereas I can't believe I'm going to say this. I almost want to plan things now. Like I've never been a planner. I'm really glad my wife's not here because she would hurrahing because I've always been to shoot from the like very yeah, like what's in front of me, like let's go spur of the moment. And I think kind of like that value is changing. Like I actually want to be more intentional because if I'm not, I can't be as consistent for other people and I can't ensure that things are gonna happen, right?
Mm.
So I think that's like a really big shift. And I'm starting to look at other people as like role models too. Like maybe they didn't necessarily live in multiple countries or travel around. They've kind of positioned themselves as a really great father, right? Or like a really great husband. And I'm starting to look at them and honestly, I've been reaching out to some like my friends' dads, right? And like asking them like, hey, you know, tell me about like being a dad for the first time or tell me about like marriage, right? And just like having more of those conversations.
Mm.
So I guess like my party's kind of shifting away from just making money, right? And then toward building family values, building like a stronger man, right? Versus, yeah, a businessman.
I love that. Yeah, like really well rounded.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like I'm maturing. It's weird.
Yeah. Hey, it's not a given, so you're clearly, effort in. I'm wondering if we shift that a bit into leadership because I do so often talk I mean I talk about life because I really don't think leadership is just in your business, but you know, having intentional mentors or intentionally, I'm like, I think a leader is built, not born. So I think you get to
Mm,
decide what kind of leader you want. And I think exactly what you're talking about of, identify people that you admire and then look at how you could show up more like them in certain situations and, um, be conscious and reflect on those things as you have taken, you've come up through more, corporate, even if it's startup, Amazon's more innovative, Microsoft's more corporate. You've come up through, the levels of internal role, and now you are a business owner. So, you're managing teams at different sizes, at different levels. Now you're managing a whole company budget. You absolutely have grown as a leader. And I'm wondering if there's, leadership myths that you've come across. Like, what's a belief about leadership that you've had to rewrite?
mm. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's one that I actually I'll stand until I die. I feel like leaders. I understand delegation. I'm understanding you can't scale without delegation. You can't grow other people's roles without delegation. But I'm a hard believer that you as a leader need to get your hands dirty, and so you can relate with your team. I am so sick and tired of like my time having managers and they have zero clue what we're actually doing trying to lead us like you don't get earn our trust at all because you clearly you're giving us directions that can't be accomplished. So like I a leadership, yeah, like I want leaders to actually get in and figure out like work behind the counter at McDonald's, right? Do the actual job so you actually know what your employees are going through. So I think hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you can't lead from 30,000 feet. You have to,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I love it. Roll up your sleeves, get in there. And I think at least from my experience, I think it's a combination of you don't have to become an expert or have done
Yeah,
everything your team does,
I agree.
but you should have a level of experience
Yeah,
underneath your expertise and facilitate probably how you interact with the team and
yeah,
the conversations and touch points that you have in order to do what I would consider your job as a leader to be, which is empower, enable, debottleneck. You
yeah.
can't really do that if you don't understand a level of nuance and detail.
Exactly. I'm not saying you need to go work that role for a year and really figure out everything. You're obviously brought in to be a leader, and I think where the myth lies is like people have a valid point. Like systems work. You can take a system in one company, put it into a totally different company, and turn it around, and make it successful. A lot of people become billionaires that way. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to that. I'm saying you do that, but you also need to like have to spend a little bit of time understanding what your employees are actually doing so you can earn their respect and relate with them, right? So I guess that's my point. The myth being, like you don't need to be an expert. It's just all about systems. And I get that I think there just needs to be a little time spent actually doing the job.
Yeah, I think respect is such an important topic when we talk about leaders and teams and scaling companies. And I'm wondering, like, I'd love to just generally understand, if is there something that you really wish, or top three things you really wish that you had known when you were scaling your business, or if there is something that's maybe more specific to what is the role of building respect and how have you maybe seen it done poorly, seen it done well? What are the lessons you've taken away on that?
Yeah, I have probably I don't know, hundreds to put on that list because, I'm figuring out being an entrepreneur now, right? I'm 2 years into it. Um, it's a lot different than when I was managing large teams.
Mhm.
It's a lot different. So I think one of the biggest surprises I had, and this is not a stupid thing out loud, I have to spend money, right? Like that was such a hurdle to get over. Like, oh, wait, Google costs money? Like I have to pay for a workspace? And like, I need to meet more people. I fly somewhere, pay for a hotel, go to an event that's expensive. Like there's so many expenses. And if you don't spend the money, you're gonna flounder unless you're in some really great situation. But like you have to do it. You have to spend the money. So I think that was like my first hurdle I had to get over, just to really get my footing as like a being a real company. I think in terms of like management, I prided myself on, being a manager at a major company with really big teams. And then I brought in my first employee. I dropped the ball. Like I expected them to, be just as bought in as employees that I managed before. But in reality, like I'm creating the environment now, right? Amazon already created that environment for me, and they already set the bar, and I have to set the bar. I have to create the environment, and I need to, manage them. And I was kind of like setting them in, going through onboarding, a little bit, and then saying, yeah, just let me know if you have any issues. And that was a bad idea, right? Like I need to like be for
Oh,
them more. Yeah, at Amazon that would have worked just fine, right? That strategy would have been fine. We would have been checking up. They would have actually met up with me and asked me questions. But in this scenario, I'm the founder. Maybe it's like I'm not as approachable, I guess, or I don't know what it is, but
I
there's still
think
a lot more I need to
I
learn. So
think it's so interesting. I want to like dig into that a little bit because I think what I heard from you is there's a difference between amplifying a culture as a manager or leader within another business and building a culture from the ground up, right? Which I always do say, like, you're building a culture whether you're doing it intentionally or not in your business, but like there's that difference. And then there is the infrastructure and of the onboarding, and then there's expectations. And so,
yeah,
you know, you are like in this remote one-on-one, founder to employee situation, as opposed to maybe Amazon where they've probably got coffee chats set up. There's people saying there's just people telling them like, no, go ask Alex about the thing. Whereas, yeah, you're now the founder. There's just less there's just less social norms like within the business in those early stages. And so you just don't have that to fall back on, right? Like there's
Yep.
just no scaffolding. You're just like up on that beam, like figuring it out.
Yep.
And I think I talk a lot about this, like expectation. There's the role, there's the deliverables, there's some structure, but then how we work together is very different, right?
Yep.
Like who sets up meetings? Who decides when we have meetings, right? Like I personally hire people and I say this in interviews. I'm like, this is my definition of managing up. This is what I believe works best for both people coming up and for me. There's other ways, but like it's my business, I'm paying you. So we're gonna, to a degree, work in the way that I know I can best support you and our success. And it sounds like all of those things are things that you've had to like encounter. Whereas before there was like a base layer that existed, and then you just got to like build and amplify it.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you have to build beyond just the company, right?
Mm.
The culture, the protocol. And I was focusing on the product and I was focusing on bringing in the customers, right? Um, I built out some SOPs and stuff, but there's so much more that goes into like building a team with an actual hierarchy and how things operate internally. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to continue to learn. And I think to add to like mentors and people I reach out to, there's people in like Dynamite Circle that I reach out to that I truly trust with their opinions. And I'm in another mastermind called Speakeasy, right? And there's some people there that really reach out to me, and I can ask these questions with. So yeah, I think you did a good job at rounding it up, but there's just a lot that I need to do. I'm only 2 years into it. We've found some success. We have a good product. Um, so I know that we're on the right path. It's just like a lot on me right now to kind of
Mm.
provide for the rest of the team.
I think that is a really great point to kind of what I was actually wanting to ask you about the clients that you work with. So, to the point you just made, in the early days of a business, it's often a one or two man show, right? Like
Yeah.
there's the person who is developing a product or service, delivering it, selling it, is also the person who is the main point of contact for customers, right? And so
Yep.
when you start to scale, you start to delineate that role and you start to have the person who conceptualized what it should be, the person who sells it, and then the person who supports a client. Those start to become different humans, not just different like titles,
Yeah.
but an actual different person. And is, like, in your experience, is that where it starts to get harder? Or what kind of changes at that phase?
Yeah. I think there's a few things that tie into it maybe being harder. Okay. So I think when it starts to change, it's harder because a lot of your time goes into finding the right people and putting trust into people to like take over those areas, right? But it's also easier because it's something's taken off your plate and you can go look another direction, right? So
Mhm.
like as long as you have someone coming in that you can trust or like it's the reason why you hire like outsourcing companies or like placement companies because you just don't have the time as a founder to go do that stuff. And if you can ensure that you have the right people coming in, it's not harder. It's actually easier, right? But the time that you have to spend with them post hire, is the harder part. Thank God we have AI that with a lot of this stuff, we can have calls and it turns into SOPs, or I can go do a performance, right, with scribe recording and it creates an SOP in a video, right? There's so many things now that make it a little easier. But yeah, sorry, what was the first part of that as well?
So I was just curious, like, as when you start to go from like one man band where you're kind of wearing all the hats, so you're conceptualizing a product or service, you're selling it, you're delivering it, and you're supporting customers
Yeah.
through it. When you start to get to the point where there are actually like different people wearing those hats or filling those roles, do you think that it gets harder in some way? As I mean, it gets easier because there's more more time and more hours for each role, right? And you can start to like narrow your focus in each role. But I'm wondering, do you also think it gets harder? And I guess from your hat or lens from a customer service and success side, do you think that it gets more difficult when the person who is, you know, conceptualizing it is not the person who's actually supporting the
Yeah. No,
client?
I don't think it gets harder unless something breaks, right? Because if something breaks, then people have to scramble to fill in an area where they haven't been covering, right? And there's clearly a system breakdown, and that does impact the customer, right? I don't think that it necessarily gets harder from like a leadership standpoint. Maybe there's more time taken, you get time back, also more time taken because you have to ensure, everyone is happy at the company. And I think until you get to a level where you have managers in place and you're really only talking to like three people,
Mhm.
um, uh, until you get to that point, it's probably at that point it's a little easier and you're just making the big decisions. But I don't think it's harder until something breaks sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually let's like take a step back for people who are listening and let's actually talk about what, customer success is because I like to think like there's customer service. We've all called a customer service
Yeah.
line at some point in our life. And I personally don't believe that that's the same as customer success. So maybe can you give a quick overview of what is customer success and, what is that role within a business?
Yeah, it's honestly the most common question I get. So customer service and representatives, they're going to be very reactive, right? So when you have an issue, you're going to reach out to customer support service representative, whoever that may be. Customer success is going to be proactive. So yes, they might be one of those people that you can reach out to, but in reality, they're going to be coming and talking to you about, let's say, like an advertising. They're going to come and talk about, are we achieving your goals? What have we done to not achieve your goals? They're looking at more big picture and they're being proactive, right?
Mhm.
They're actually going to be making sure that you're working towards achieving your goals, and they're going to be taking any negative feedback that you have to adjust on internally to make sure that they're resolved. Um, and then, yeah, customer representatives say like, "Hey, my website is down," or this issue. Um, they're gonna handle your issue right away as a reactive measure. But
Mhm.
the customer success is going to make sure that that website never went down, or maybe it went down for one customer and they prevent that issue from happening to all customers, right? So they're very proactive at looking at ways to prevent issues from impacting a customer journey.
Yeah. So I often, especially if when I'm working in kind of the VC accelerator, like founder fundraising space, we talk a lot about, traction, customer attraction, cost of acquisition. So like really looking at like how do you get people into your business to grow? And one thing that I talk a lot to founders about is you need to show that to investors, you need to show traction, but you need to also show that you're keeping customers because if you're bringing them in and they're not staying, then it's just a flow through and you're not growing and it's not a sustainable business. I'm wondering for you, how similar is customer retention, customer success to sales? And what are the metrics that,
Hmm.
customer success team should be looking at?
Yeah, it's a great question as well. It's not, I'd say there's a separation between customer success and sales. That's pretty big, right? Like, customer success was created because there was account managers before, right? But they had a sales incentive. So they were reaching out to manage their clients or customers, but they always kind of had an agenda to sell them something, right? They weren't there necessarily to help them, ensure that they're enjoying the services or if there's anything that can change or, they doing their goals. So customer success was created to account manager, but not have that sales incentive, not be trying to push them into a certain direction, move them towards achieving their goals. But ironically, that earns a lot of trust, right? And then they become the perfect person to suggest an upsell when it makes sense strategically. So a lot of times you start to see people treat customer success kind of like a sales arm for upselling, but they have to earn that trust first, and they really can't be judged off of that sales quota. If
Mm,
I think that's a good way to kind of separate the two.
I really like that distinction. You spoke earlier in our conversation about how, innovative some companies are, and I'm wondering, does customer success have a role to play in that innovation because of
Yeah.
their access to customers and their needs and their challenges?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up, actually. So yeah, customer success will take a lot of customer feedback, right? Like that's a crux of it, and maybe there has been a common issue, or that has been brought up several times, or preventing people from achieving their goals, or maybe there is customers leaving. The retention numbers are showing they're leaving and they're hopping to another competitor because they offer something different, right? All that feedback needs to be collected properly, like a value, like how can we use it valuably, and then present it to a product team that can actually innovate your company. So like the customers are really the ones that are uh, giving you the information to determine where to innovate and what to innovate. And customer success managers, since they've earned trust, they're tied to the customer's business. They're the ones with the finger on the pulse that can actually, grab that information and deliver it properly to the product team or just leadership in general. So yeah, usually that's kind of how that workflow works. Is coming from the customer to a CSM to leadership and product teams.
Okay, cool. Is there a particular characteristic that you think makes a really great customer service manager or representative, or sorry, customer success? Even I'm falling into it.
No, you're good.
Particular customer success, you know, representative, and or something in training, onboarding protocols that you think is make or break for someone to succeed in that role?
I have both. So everyone talks about empathy for customer success. I that's great. I think you do need it, but I want someone with a lot of ownership. So when I'm doing interviews, I'm asking behavioral questions to see if they can exemplify ownership. Are they telling me that they took a client issue and they worked on it? What was the strategy? They worked on it. They analyzed it. They put it in place. Even if they worked with another team, they saw it through, right? They were the ones that brought the solution back. And then they scaled it out to the rest of the team. That shows like a lot of ownership. I want someone with agency, so someone who like learns fast and isn't scared to learn and be curious and dive into new topics. But my most important and favorite one is like I want someone with a backbone. Yeah, they have empathy, but someone who is not afraid to say no, who's willing to, to tell the customer that they're going the wrong direction, even if they have to like disagree and then commit to go the direction, wrong. At least they told them,
Mhm.
why what they're doing is wrong and that they don't advise it, right? Like that earns a
Yeah.
lot of trust.
I was gonna say, I think that integrity really builds trust. Like if you have the client's best interest and you stand up for why you believe that and you're credible, like that's someone I want in my corner.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think like in terms of like a system in place or mechanism in place to, if you're looking at hiring a customer success manager or you have one,
Mm.
would be make sure that someone really can learn your product or service to be an expert. The field is
Mhm.
kind of shifting towards advisory instead of, just like relationship management. They really want to like advise people on how to best use your product or service. So in order to do that, they have to really know your product or service better than, anybody else. So if you don't have a training program, have someone that can spend all the time in the world with them to get them up to speed. If you have both, that's um, and I think a feedback loop is really big. So like having a ability is like a built-in already, or be willing to reach out to customers, collecting their feedback, and being able like having a process where you take that feedback and you actually do something with it internally, whether that be innovating new products and services, with the product team, changing how customer support, works with the clients when they're reaching out with urgent issues, or a lot of times it's fixing the expectations that sales set, right, during the sales process, because there's an expectation gap after, they've made their purchase versus what they perceived. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think of it as like it's almost like instructions for use, and
Yeah,
your
exactly.
customer success representative gets to be the kind of, yeah, instructions for use and the first like super user, the first
Yep.
champion that ideally they're going to pass that on and have people in the client side who really step into those roles depending on what your product or service is. But yeah, I love that. We could have a whole other podcast on like sales expectations
Yeah.
and communication.
I love sales, but it's, a lot of times the expectations. It's not all, like I think it can
It's a
go,
culture thing. It's for
it's a
sure. Like I
culture.
think sell it and we'll figure it out is a culture that does scale you
Yeah.
for the first part of a business, but it can get a little
Yeah.
dangerous if you are a more mature business that can't pivot to deliver that quickly.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some really cool scenarios though, where customer success teams are taking some case stories from very successful, clients or customers, arming the sales team with that, educating them on them, so they have real content to like bring up during a sales call, like giving them ammunition essentially to be getting close.
Yeah.
And I've seen sales really appreciate that, right? And then I actually have like this thing I do with my clients. I have a document. I call it like the promise delivery or promise and expectations. And sales is supposed to fill this out and hand it over to customer success during onboard before onboarding. So they know exactly what was promised and delivered or promised on the sales call. And then they have to figure out with that document how much of this is like realistic, right? And then how much like re-expectation setting am I going to have to do? Just so like there's an idea ahead.
I
But
love
yeah,
that.
it's a lot of work of sales.
I've devised similar new processes to have what I would call handshakes
Mm,
between sales and delivery, depending on like the type of client. But yeah, like in one, I think we even called it like we're gonna set up a handshake process. And it was like, how do you hand over from the person who sold something to the project team that is now delivering? This was in like modular construction. So these were like big, long
mm,
projects. But yeah, just like the relationship and expectation being transferred
yeah.
was a gap for that client. So it sounds like you have a really amazing process that is probably, your clients can take it. It's even documented for them. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I've been thinking about adding it as like at least the process and the documents like as a digital product on our site. And then if they want help implementing and like kind of coaching their team through, I'm starting
That's
doing
where they
that.
should be.
Yeah, plug.
Absolutely. Please feel free to plug, especially if you're offering, free value. We'll make sure at the end we go through that as well. Um, So there's one more question I want to touch on. I want to be conscious of time, but I know you are on the cutting edge and have been for a number of years of outsourcing, offshoring, having very high touch service oriented roles be provided by people who are not, direct employees in your company or physically in your office. It's like just catch all definition, right? I feel like most people know, but I just want to be clear, like, what does
Yeah.
that mean? Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, how you got into, offshoring and outsourcing and how you got familiar with it, got comfortable with it, and how you incorporate that into the services you help your clients with, and really the pros and cons or, must knows if someone is exploring that option of whether it be, partial, full-time, remote.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people think of outsourcing as like virtual assistants, right? And it's so funny because like there's that side of outsourcing, and there's the other side where a majority of people, I wouldn't say majority, it's getting close to almost half of the people that you would talk to at like a major company, they're outsourced. Like if they're in the building, like Microsoft and Amazon, majority or half the people we had there, they had a different badge. They actually were employed from another company to work there, right?
Mm.
Um, and they're super high. They're very skilled. It just they have companies kind of there's a series of different benefits. Like one, they don't have to manage the fulfillment of payments, right? Compensation, benefit. So like that's a huge relief to kind of just go ahead and pay someone to take care of that service, right? They can actually, have a full-time recruiter because of that. Someone can actually be looking and filling these spots that are maybe upcoming needs, or replacements of people leaving. Like those can be filled with spend money on a full-time recruiter, the salary, all these different things that kind of really it turns into like millions of dollars, right? At these big companies. And even on like a smaller level, like that model's been replicated. So I got introduced to, I think, more of that realm outside of corporate with my wife. She owns an outsourcing company, and she's owned it for I think 15 years.
Mm.
If anyone doesn't know my wife, she's quite the entrepreneur. So she's had she grew this company, Proximity Outsourcing, where she got rid of the virtual assistant model a long time ago because, the way she would say, everyone and their mom can have, virtual assistant outsourcing company. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having that, but she wanted to separate herself. So she started sort of managers, engineers, operations managers, graphic designers, right? So kind of the hire people part time, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week from different countries with different languages, different skill sets, bring on for full time or project based. So there's like so many different options when you go that route. And for me, that was my experience was just my wife's, right? And then working at corporate, seeing that. But through doing my consulting, people started to ask me to hire customer success managers for them because it's a really difficult position to hire. There's a lot of people that will leave you because it's a kind of a gateway, maybe into like another position, or they're just people don't have the knack to be so multifaceted all the time. And so it's a very unique person who just really excels at it, and I know how to hire them. So I started another company called Get CSM, and we placement and all of a sudden we started doing outsourcing as well, kind of with the help of my wife's team. But I just manage all of the outsourcing for customer success managers.
I love that. Such a power couple. I'll make sure to link Carla's episode from last season in here because her story is a five as well. And yeah, I mean, I think also kudos to you guys in seeing, what is a fairly natural fit, but absolutely like opportunity to amplify each of your businesses by leveraging those skills. So you know how to hire customer success
Yeah.
managers, customer success, inside and out. And then Carla and the proximity team, they really understand that like global resource pool and they understand how to onboard culture, everything, somebody who doesn't sit within your organization. So I think that's such an incredible combination that obviously like, yeah, I'll plug that for you that
Oh,
you are
thank you.
bringing something that other customer success experts might not have, right? Like
Yeah.
what that combination kind of joint venture looks like. I love that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of people in my field, they're like coaches to try to get people customer success jobs, or they are in the industry themselves, or speakers, right? And I've definitely kind of found my own niche in the industry, and one that I'm like really good at and I really enjoy. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here.
Well, and I love that because that's such a full circle of, what is success? Like it's enjoying what you do and it gives you a life that you love. So
Yeah,
I love that for you. And I think, one more kind of plug or piece around this is finding the right person. Like I love that you talked about the behavioral components that you're looking for. Like interviewing is a skill and
yeah,
weeding through people is a skill. And these days CVs and everything, especially with AI, I'm like, yeah, like it's fine, it's useful, but really learning how to interview people, how to then, as I said, kind of you have like what do they need to know as a customer success um, representative, but onboarding people to a team is a bigger picture. And I
yeah,
think that, and I know proximity is amazing at that. And therefore your kind of joint venture there is as well. Like, that is a skill. And then to your point, in this particular industry role of customer success, it is a I would say moderate to high turnover type role. So how do you maintain people? Because there's a huge benefit to maintaining people for your customers, for yourself, for your bottom line, for your
Yeah.
sanity. Like those things I think are huge, and we could do a whole nother conversation. But I think everything you've shared, it makes it very clear that that is what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I things that do help. You got to pay people well. Like honestly, I hate seeing people not get paid appropriately. It's honestly what's created for outsourcing for real levels like that, like us, or like bigger positions like what Carla does. Because people will treat VAs like a project manager, and they got hired to be a VA, and they just want to pay a VA salary, right?
Mhm.
So you got to pay people at the skill level well enough. You have to give them benefits, and I do community for anyone I place. I have a Discord community where they only have access to, and we share customer success skills, funny memes. We do training sessions, and they're constant upskilling, new tool access. So it's just like a spot for us to really like continue to build our skills, and I think that helps a lot.
And that community is for people that you've placed in
Correct.
clients.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love
Yeah.
that.
I'm like constantly giving them the ability to get better at their job and a space to reach out to me that where their employer isn't, hey, I think I'm, lacking in this one area, and I can help them address that pretty fast. Maybe selfishly, I just want to talk customer success because I'm a little bit of a nerd for it. But I've seen a positive impact in terms of their retention because, what might have been an issue one week, the next week, we've already talked about it, we've addressed it, we've, put some time into it. So it's not necessarily a glaring issue anymore. And it doesn't snowball into a bigger issue where they're getting, released from their position.
That's what I was going to say is I think what you, especially if this is a growing organization where there isn't a huge customer success team that they can bounce these ideas around and
Yeah.
leadership that really like lives and breathes it the way that you do. Plus it's a safe space where you're not having to like bear your, like
Yeah,
your weakness in
100%.
front of your team or your boss. Like I actually think that's amazing. This incredible value that, absolutely is driving more and more value for anyone who gets recruited through you and anyone who's, having you, your clients who are having you recruit for them. I love that.
Thank you. And at the end of the day, like I get some really cool memes. So it's fun. Yeah.
I mean, I live for memes. So I personally
Yeah.
think that's great. I'll join for the memes.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll send you a link.
So at the end of the podcast, I am going to ask you to share, really quickly how people can get in touch with you, work with you, access your resources. But before we do that, I have a couple rapid fire questions that I'd love to ask you. So you can absolutely pass on them. They can
Okay.
be one-word answers, whatever suits you. There's no rhyme or reason. We just want to like run through them really quickly. You ready?
All right. Let's do this.
Okay. What's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
Uh, Moving out of the US.
Love that. What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
Easy.
Mm. Is there a book, podcast, or person that really like cracked something open for you?
Yeah, I really like My First Million. It this makes me feel like I'm on the right path and gets me excited about being an entrepreneur every day. Every time I listen to it, it just pumps me up.
I love that. What's something you've said never again to in your business?
Yeah, it's a gosh, I'm gonna pass on that one. The one, because the one I had in my head, I shouldn't share.
No
So,
worries. If you had a free weekend and zero obligations, how would you spend it?
uh, probably working a little bit. To be completely honest, I enjoy it. Maybe surfing a little bit as well, and just with my wife. Yeah.
Amazing. Alex, thank you so much for joining Builders and for sharing so much value, honestly. We went into even more depth than I was expecting, which just makes me so happy. If people want to get in touch with you to learn, consult, just, check out more about you, see where you're golfing in the world,
Oh yeah.
what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
Well, right now I've really just been focusing on LinkedIn. I keep my Facebook and Instagram kind of private to the family. So LinkedIn would be Alexander at Huckleberry Consulting. And then I have my website, Consult Huckleberry. You can book a free consult. I have free audit on there as well. You fill out a form, and I'll send it back to you in 48 hours or 2 business days. And then I have getcsm.com. So that's where you can find your first customer success manager or your 100th customer success manager, whether you're bringing them on your team permanently or want to outsource for 10 hours a week all the way up to 40 hours a week.
Amazing. We will make sure to put all of that in the show notes, links, super, super easy. So thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Amazing. That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to peep my creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.